Thanks for having me again. Let me put my smock on. I was told that tonight's subject would be conifers, so I guess these are the 3 trees I have to choose from. I usually like to poll the audience, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? They might not pick the right one. So I'll give some suggestions and we'll see what comes up. Is this on this thing? I'm going to put it up here. And you know what I'm going to do too is I'll grab all 3 of those and discuss a little bit about care of each one, even though I'm not going to work on all 3. I'm going to pick one to work on. Is that good enough? I'm going to work over there, so let's drag all this stuff over there. Are these on wheels? Yeah. I'll work over there. Is that good enough?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because this table's a little further out. I'm not even going to pick those up. I'll leave them where they're at. Is there any wire that we can that I can use?
Yes, aluminum or copper?
Copper. All right. I'm going to go over. You know, one gentleman had asked me before about pine needle reduction, and I'm going to do a little quick thing about pine and needle reduction. A lot of people don't know how to take care of their pines. They'll get a pine bonsai, and they won't take care of the needles or prune the needles properly, and it just completely loses its shape in a very, very quick amount of time. Now, if you notice that these, what we call candles, you see them? Obviously, they're pretty obvious. There's 2 ways of working on the candles, so to speak. Okay, now this is a mugo pine, right? Looks like a mugo pine. It probably is. Very similar to black pine in that it is a 2-needle pine, meaning there's 2 needles coming out of each sheath. So black pine and mugo pine are 2-needle pine. A white pine is 5 needles from each sheath. Now, if you, well, I can pass one around and you can see it. Let me get a scissor. So you'll understand what I mean by 2-needle and 5-needle. Yeah, just look at where the needles are coming off of the main stem, and there's 2 together. Now, is there an eraser for this? No? Yeah, I need a paper towel. They're going to get a paper towel. Now, these candles up here, there's two main. I'm going to take them off anyway, just for the example. As you can see that these candles are growing pretty vigorously. And you can see that there's, oh, can you get it?
Yeah, just hold it steady.
All right. And as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles coming out of that one spot, okay? And a spider. Look at that.
No charge for that.
So the first thing you do is, depending on where this is on the tree, you pick 2 candles. You never leave all 5 or 6 because it'll just become a wheel spoke, so to speak. So what I do is, if it's on the top of the tree and it's pulling a lot of energy, I leave the 2 smallest candles, okay? So I would literally take out the biggest ones and leave the 2 smallest ones, or 2, smallish ones, okay? And am I in the same spot? So you can see I left 2. And you would let them grow, okay? Now, there's one method that they do in Japan where they will let this grow till the needles are about 1/4 of an inch. So they'll let it get even bigger. And then what they'll do is they'll cut it off altogether. They'll cut it off. They'll cut it off right at the base. Okay? And they'll take it off. Now that's usually done in July. The other method is, at this point right now, they'll take those candles and they break them in half. We'll do it on a bigger one so you can see.
So would you break it in half now and then cut it off in July?
This particular race, I would break in half right now. See?
White pine also?
White pine are a little different. White pine, if you notice, they grow really long candles with little tiny short needles on each side. Those I'll just trim the candle to the desired height. Okay? So now, depending on what you want to do with your tree, depending on the time span you've had with the tree, meaning how mature of a bonsai it is, or if you want it to grow, depends on what you want to do. So again, if it's at the top of the tree where there's a lot of energy, you want to get these biggest candles off and leave the smallest ones. And if you're at a point where you've got a mature tree that's got lots of pads, foliage pads, and you want to keep it compact, you're going to break these candles. Okay? You're going to break them in half to keep the tree in shape. All right? And if it's a tree that you want to gain vigor and you want to grow, you'll let them grow and then cut them off at the bottom. I use it as the same example on defoliating a Japanese maple is the same thing as taking these candles off in July. You're leaving obviously all of this at the bottom, but you're pruning all these off. And what it does is it sends a ton of energy, and it'll send 5 more of these. So what it does is it gives you a second set of growth. Okay? So that's black pine and mugo pine we can do that with.
Mugos are there 2 flush pines?
2 needle pine, you mean?
Well, they'll flush twice.
Oh, they definitely will, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Black pines will do it.
The mugo pine will too, for sure, especially in our environment. It's pretty warm. Any questions about that? Yeah.
In July, they will no longer be candles, they will be shoots.
Well, yeah, that's my point. They'll have needles that are about 1/4 of an inch on each side, and there'll be a shoot. That's why we waited to that point to cut them off, because at that point the plant is sending energy, so much energy that was drawn to that point, that when you stop it, it's got to keep going. So it sends all new little candles. And the advantage of that is those new little candles don't have enough time to get really tall. So the needles stay short. So you ever see a black pine with needles a 1/2 an inch, 3/4 inch? That's how they do it. Most of my black pines have little tiny needles on them because I do that every year. So my preference is the latter, to let that candle grow, open out, then cut them off completely and start off with a whole new flush. Because then you can just pick the 2 that you want, and you can balance out the tree. Again, heavy ones up here, take off, leave smaller ones on the bottom that you want to grow and get energy on the bottom. You leave the bigger candles. So it's all balance. Everything in bonsai is balance. It's just like in Tai Chi, it's balance. In Kung Fu, it's balance. In bonsai, it's balance. So you have to balance out the tree completely, because if it's not balanced, it's going to send all its energy. Everything is apically based, meaning all of the energy is going to the apex. If you leave it that way, the tree's going to lose all the branches underneath it. Okay? So the next tree is a cedar. There was somebody else with a question? No? Now, is this a, what kind of cedar is this?
Oh, Black Dragon.
Oh, Black Dragon. So it's a cryptomeria? It's a dwarf variety? If you notice, you can see all the bright green on the ends of the branches. On this particular variety, it's too late right now to start pruning it. You need to prune it before it does that, okay? So, and what I do is this has such small, tight growth that there's no reduction required. It's just pruning. So this you would just prune And another thing I noticed about cryptomeria is they get really tight in the middle. Can you get in on there? Look at all that growth right up against the trunk. I worked on one of these a couple years ago for you guys when you had the meetings on the other side. And I remember pulling all of this stuff out so you can see the trunk. So that's the most important part about working on the cedars. You got to get all this tight congestion out of the front, out of the trunk, and you've got to pick your branches and prune. So this wouldn't be a good candidate to work on. And last but not least is a Serbian spruce. Did this have its flush of growth already? And they're hardening off? No? Because they usually don't grow as fast as they take a while to get going. Let's take a look at the tips here. Yeah, you can see them in there. Spruce make beautiful bonsai. In my opinion, spruce is one of the most underrated bonsai. This to me would be the best subject to work on today because it hasn't sent its initial spring growth like those two have. This tree is pretty far ahead. As you can see, these candles are pretty tall. And this is pretty far ahead too, with all these little green tips on the ends. But this hasn't started growing yet. So, what was the Latin name on this again? Picea amorica? Amorica. And was there a third name? Like a variety? All right, somebody get online and find out. So, as Hal was talking about before, informal upright. That's basically what I see in this tree, an informal upright. But there's a few different options here. You've got a few different apexes or apical, one goes this way, one goes this way. We can also pull it over. But the first thing to do is to take out what's not necessary. Now, does anybody notice what's going on here? It's growing on the inside of a curve. You see that? Is that hard to see? You never keep a branch on the inside of a curve, ever. It's not aesthetically pleasing, number one, and it's not healthy to the tree. So that's got to go first. And we're going to get it close because we don't even want to leave a nub in there. Now on spruce, I like to really get down to the bare bones on them because they do tend to send shoots everywhere, and they're very upward dominant. So what you've got to do with the spruce is you've got to bring it down. You've got to wire it and bring it down, and it'll be a battle for the first couple of years. But once you get it to that point, you'll be in good shape. Let me see what we got here. Now, what I always try to do, too, is I try to make a tall tree short. Because when you make a tall tree short, the large trunk makes it look like a larger tree. First, let's take the bottom of this thing off. So you can see the nabari.
Does the lean of the trunk determine the front of the tree?
It does, but also the rootage does, too. You got to see what's underneath the soil here. Now in Japan they work on spruce, but it's a, what is it? Is that the Latin name? What? Picea amorica. Doesn't it?
Or is it that there's thousands of them?
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it was.
No, this is it right here, amorica.
But does it give you the one you wanted? Third? Jimson, is that what it is?
I don't know. You find out. You just have to compare. There's got to be a picture. I'm just going to pull this a little bit away just to see if there's a nice root spread here, which it looks like there is. We're going to put it back in that pot. Now, what I was saying before about spruce being very upright in nature, obviously they grow like a Christmas tree. And to make a bonsai out of them, the best type of bonsai would be a formal upright or an informal upright. In this case, an informal upright. But also, the branches are always trying to go up. I heard one Japanese guy say that, spruce are, a waste of time. But yet, there are a lot of spruce bonsai in Japan. And also, Nick Lenz. Anybody know Nick Lenz? He wrote a book about American bonsai. And his greatest complaint about spruce is that they're constantly growing upwards. And you can't, it's a constant battle, which he's right. But there's a few species of spruce that lend themselves really well to bonsai culture. And this is one of them, the Serbian spruce. Also, the spruce that Jim Doyle worked on a couple months ago, the Engelmann spruce is a really good spruce to use for bonsai. And you want ones with small needles. You don't want a really large needle. You don't want like Colorado blue spruce. That thing's going to grow like a Christmas tree no matter what you do, unless you find one that's really old growing on the side of a mountain. But they're going to want thousands of dollars for it if you find one. All right, so. Now I'm just deciding whether or not to keep it going in that direction or to have the tree go this way. And I'm almost leaning towards going this way.
Are you talking about which the front will be? Is that what you-
Well, I'm talking about which is going to be the apex, this or this. So I'm going to draw a picture, and you're going to decide. So we got two choices. We can either go
Where's the one that works? Did we pass the others away?
I thought there was a little pink bag. You took it away?
I put it away.
Come on. I'll start with this. So this is option one. Option one is me taking this and ginning it. Ginning is meaning taking the bark off of it and leaving dead wood, and making this the whole tree. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you very much. That's option one. Option two would be, I hate to erase this because it came out so good. I'll draw it up here. I'll make it a little smaller. Option number two would be a very informal, straight up which is something you see every day anyway. So what do you think? Option A or option B? What? Yeah, cascade. We'll have to put it upside down. All right, so that's what we're going to do. All right, so the first thing I'll do would be to take off this one, which we don't need here. I remember working on a tree once a long time ago, and I took off the wrong branch. The one I didn't want, the one I wanted to keep, I ended up taking off by accident. I'm like, wow, I gotta do a whole nother plan now. But I didn't tell anybody. I just kept going. But you know what? I always tell people when they're working on trees, if you don't do this now and you keep leaving as much as you can, you're going to have to do it anyway eventually. So just do it in the beginning instead of wasting all those years. You know? Yeah, you'll look at... You know, you got to...
I think you have a better handle on what the tree can handle than we do. There were many of us anyway. You're probably a lot braver pulling off more stuff. We're afraid of killing it.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about, you know, in the beginning, I was afraid of killing trees too, but I think you're better off just working on cheaper trees in the beginning and trying your hand at the culture first. You know, bonsai is a multifaceted art form. It's not just horticulture, it's art and horticulture. So you have to have an eye for what you're doing, and you need to know when's the right time of year to do it. Now, like I said before I worked on it, this is a perfect time to work on this tree because, number one, it hasn't started growing yet. So it's ready to go. I mean, we could even put this in another pot if we wanted to, just trim a few of the roots and keep, because it's in, look how small of a pot it was in. You know, you could put it in take a little bit off the bottom and put it in a ceramic pot and just plant it in straight gravel or turf face and let it really grow. So.
You haven't determined the front yet?
No, not yet. I'll do that last. I like to get get an idea of what I'm doing first, and then I got to keep the right branches. And, you know, eventually what I would do with this gin is I would bring it down. I need my marker. I would include it into the trunk, but you don't want to do that right away. You see how it is here? I would include it to be part of, you know, some deadwood in the side of the trunk, okay?
At what time would you consider doing that?
Probably like 2 or 3 years. Right now, we wanted to send all the energy that way. We don't want to disturb the energy going to this apex here. If we do, it'll get upset. It might not grow. Now, these are my gin pliers. These are just channel locks. And all you got to do is squeeze the... Is there a lock on this thing?
Yeah, it's on the side,
There's a lock on
on
it?
this corner. But you have to find the hole that it slips into.
All right, don't worry about it. I'll turn the whole box. I'm strong. And all I do is crimp the wood and peel off the bark. And it's easiest to do it when the tree is still alive because it peels right off. When it's dry and it's dead, you can't get the bark off and it doesn't look as nice. You'll see once I get it off, it makes it, you know, it looks like nice dead wood. Yeah.
What are you doing? Taking bark off a dead branch?
I'm taking the bark off a live branch, but it's not going to be alive now that I'm taking the bark off. So I'm creating dead wood as a feature in the tree. It's aesthetically pleasing. You know, bonsai have a lot of dead wood on them. A lot of trees in nature have dead wood on them.
Does that risk the health of the tree at all?
No, because it's not. It's sending all its energy this way now to all the rest of the tree.
Done somewhere, yeah. Not very good at it.
In nature, one winter, this tree could lose one whole side, either from lightning or from snow breaking a branch off. So, I've seen plenty of trees growing in nature where one whole side is gone and the other side is growing. So, again, timing is everything. If a tree is healthy, it'll just keep growing, keep going, and keep growing.
Conversation about the maples, timing.
Timing is everything.
You prove my point for me.
All right, so that's just a dead wood feature. I'll work on that afterwards. And if you notice, I left like a little collar here so it doesn't go too far down. And in time, what I would do is I would include this whole side as dead wood once I know it's got enough energy going that way. Right now it doesn't because we just did it. And I try to get all this stuff away from the trunk. And another thing that we do on spruce is you see all these needles growing on the trunk here? We get all those out. Those are needles from 2012 probably. It will. What's nice about spruce is, as long as you leave greenery on the tips and on the ends, you'll start to see little buds developing in between, in the crotches. And what you could do is, for example, say you've got a long branch and you want to shorten it in time, and all the growth is out here, all the needles, and you want to get them back here. You can prune all these off and wire them so that they get into the sun. And you're going to hope that you get like a new bud back here or maybe even if there's a little piece here, it'll start sending a new one from the crotch, and then you can work your way back. You can whittle your way back to get to here, you know. All right, I'm going to start wiring. So if you guys want to get up and take a closer look. Oh, there too. I forgot. I'm in. It's like Willy Wonka when the kid is on TV, right?
Yeah.
Why did you choose copper over aluminum for this one?
I always use copper on conifers, always, because copper holds better. And for example, remember I was saying in the beginning, these spruces they constantly want to grow upwards. I don't know if anybody's ever wired a tree where you wire the branch down, you take the wire off a year later, and the branch goes right back up. That's what spruce does too. But the good thing about copper is it work hardens, and over time it gets harder. It doesn't get softer as time goes by, it gets harder. So it stays in place. So it'll keep the branches from moving around a lot.
How long can you leave it?
Well, I leave it on until I think it might be growing into the bark. And once I see that, I take it off. So on spruces, maybe one growing season. In the fall, I would probably take this off and do it again. And I always like to go a little thicker. I like to use a piece of wire that's a third the thickness of the branch. Because I only want to bend it once. I don't want to sit there bending, bending, bending. You ever wire a branch with something too light and then you got to do it again? Don't do that. Just do it once. You don't want to mess up the tree too much.
It's important to note that also with copper, a smaller piece of wire will hold a bigger branch than with aluminum because of what you're saying, it stays longer.
Right.
You need a much bigger piece of aluminum to do the same thing.
And the thicker the thickness starts from the inside of the branches. So the thickest wire is on the thickest branches, and as you work your way to the end, you're using thinner wires, okay? So when I get to these secondary branches and tertiary branches, I'm going to use thinner wires as I get to the ends. You know, it takes a long time to learn how to wire. Paul Fogelberg knows. Right, Paul?
Right.
Takes
I was just making a comment that you're supposed to go grade down that wire.
What?
The branch gets thinner.
That's what I just said. You were talking to your friend over
Yeah,
there.
it's hard.
You don't pay attention. That's why you're not good at wiring.
We were discussing the same thing.
All right. Copper wire is not that hard to find. There's a few guys that sell it. There's one guy named Jim Grimmel, which is in California. He sells it. Also, Julian Adams was really good. I like him. His wire is really nice. I buy wire from him often too. I think that's about it. But that's all you need. You don't really.
At least you have somebody.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Stone Lantern used to sell it, but they don't sell it anymore. They sell aluminum now. So.
Aluminum wire is a bad word.
No, it just doesn't have the holding power that copper does.
Yeah, I use aluminum on Japanese maples. If I wire a maple tree, I use aluminum wire because the maple tree bark is so thin that if you use copper, you're going to ruin it in a few growing weeks. You'll ruin the tree.
Very easy to damage.
Yeah, really easy. So
Even with aluminum, trying to wire it.
Wire on this guy?
Not right now. I'll let it grow. I got one I'm gonna try airline. See if that works. Now the top one is the wire on, that's the one you can use your apex, or the thicker one is your apex.
what do you mean over here?
Yeah, is that one, that one would be your apex?
Yeah, somewhere around here.
Now, eventually would you cut off that other branch on the other side?
Which one? One of these?
No, on the other side of the trunk.
This?
Eventually,
This?
yeah. 'Cause
I'll
it's
just
right
make
on-
it. I'll just make it shorter. I'm gonna leave as much as I can now. I don't want to.
Right, you can't do that, that would take too much.
Yeah.
You would just leave this alone until it's full now, right?
Yeah, I would take the wire off in the fall. So whoever gets this, get a wire cutter and take it all off in the fall. Don't leave it on. You don't want to. You don't want it to start growing in.
No, I work near Stony Brook, so they used to call me. I'm halfway here anyway, doing some work. It's a hike, but, nobody else is here all along, They meet on Friday nights, it's much, I know good for me in the summer. Yeah, summertime is fishing season, and Friday night was on the boat. Friday night meetings are no go. Not gonna happen. I got my husband let me take some bonsai classes up in Massachusetts. For a couple of Saturdays that I have to be gone. He was thrilled with it, but he was like, yeah, okay, because, doesn't want to learn. And I got one, actually one was April 4th, was the first one. Second one is May 23rd, which is Memorial Day weekend.
Are they with Sutin?
No, New England Bonsai Garden,
Oh, New England, yeah.
John Romano.
You know him?
Yeah, yeah.
Just over an hour and a half.
For this year, and then there's more next year.
To go that kind of distance? Quality of knowledge?
No offense to that, it's very disappointing in recent times. I learned nothing but bonsai.
Totally understand what you're saying.
That's why I started coming here. Because I was actually learning something.
That's what clubs are for.
Right.
You watching, Henry? All right, good. You can come up if you look closer if you want.
I was gonna say that.
It's a social club.
I felt that was harsh, but it's
I know
accurate.
it sounds
It's
harsh,
accurate.
but you know,
It depends on your knowledge at entry level. For me, it was perfect. For you, you already knew as much as anybody there.
no, I would say that, and I think that's being too generous, but I've done a lot of and I've done a lot of repotting. That's pretty much all I've done, is repotting, keep things alive, that's about it. But that's where you gotta start, you know? Like you said, you gotta learn how to keep it alive before you can learn how to wholesome.
Yep, keeping it alive is the trick.
When I got that big Chiflera, I gave my 15-year-old Chiflera to my godson. I told him, you know what's going on with this? Never got a question. So I was there last month, his sister had babies. I said, how's that Chiflera? He goes, oh, it's in the basement. It's okay.
The basement.
I said, you know, some nice light up here, bring it up, let's see what you got.
Oh, no.
Dead.
That look on his face. And then he brought it up and, don't. He's saying, I'm hoping it comes back.
How long has it been in the basement?
Yeah.
Since last fall.
With no water and no light, yeah.
And he said, I have another plant, I cut it off at the base and it started to grow back. And I went, it's exactly what you want about something. Get rid of that big ugly trunk and just have a small bush.
I did that when I had a tree at a smoke bush I bought 2 years ago. And it was big tall, and I cut some of it, multiple trunks. I cut some of the trunks off, and then I was hoping it would backbite. And then this spring, I'm looking at it, it started to bud a little bit on the tips. I'm like, damn, we're not going to backbite. I said, all right, sink or swim. I cut it, I chucked it back hard, cut it back. Say, you die of backbite. Oh, damn it, started to backbite. I'm like, okay, you get repotted now. You don't go over the fence. I was like, damn. It's just, you know.
You got the guts to get it open. So I saw
Well,
how,
that's sometimes what it takes.
What? Yeah, I got a water.
I saw how badly he felt. They had to show me this dead tree that he knows that I had 15 years. I told him, please, the amount of trees that I
To
cut
ki-
off
to-
before I started to understand.
What, like here, you mean? Because I.
Don't feel the inside.
Oh, those? Because it's such a thick trunk, I can't go around it. You know what I mean?
I should have checked.
Right, right.
I figured no news is good news, because when I first gave it to him, how you gonna force this guy on it? I could tell he really cared about it.
No, I don't think so. Maybe I'll wire, we'll see.
One thing I read that you can coppice them, you just mean you just cut it short. But again, being new, I'm afraid to cut off too much. You know what I mean? You know, it's because I don't want to kill it. And it would budget everything. So, well, it's this Treat the little horses to see what they can handle. And if they die, they die. Don't. This is those one. I'm like, all right, take a swim. Let's go. They've been butting all over the place now. Like, hey, you live.
Nothing significant would have been accomplished without that risk.
Well, that's it. And I've got some glory, right?
Right, exactly.
And then now it's got, you know, it has me in my mind now. We're back later.
Well, that's the grocery store. The grocery store. Yeah.
I wasn't around then.
What size wires are these?
The trunk is huge.
The numbers? I'm using 14, 16, 12.
It looks like it's 100-year-old.
Like I said before, I use a third of the thickness of the branch.
Ficus I got last year. That was bigger. I can't believe it's running. Putting out leaves like crazy
The
now.
one from Diane's
The
office.
little, yeah, the little Vietnamese blood ficus.
Zero change.
No?
Not a leaf has changed. Nothing has fallen off, and nothing has grown. It's exactly the same.
Mine's lost some leaves, but now I just looked at the other day, it's got all kinds of leaves stuff. But again, it's my lights. I gotta believe that's it. My lights. Last year I had them after just one little fluorescent bulb, and it wasn't, 24 watt. This year, I mean, they survived. I had ficus in there, and they survived, but they didn't really grow or thrive. They kept losing leaves. So like last fall, I went to Home Depot. I bought 2 4-foot fixtures, 3 bulbs each, and I put them there. And I have them hanging on the. I put them in the basement on a table, and I had them hanging. I can adjust the height of the lights.
That's what Don got. Is that where you got that?
No, I just knew.
Have you seen Don?
No,
Same thing.
No, I just I made it. I made it up myself.
You're going to expect growth to come out of the branch like that? Going to
Yeah, it would. It would. If there's needles on that branch, it'll start buds around those needles, and they'll come out. Definitely. Spruce is really amazing for that.
My azaleas are blooming.
Just now they're starting. One of them is living.
Well, the ones in the yard are all starting. A couple of them bloom, and I have one that's a bonsai that's starting. I know it's flowered on. Yeah, like I said, I was impressed with that spectrum.
They've got the number. This is just me. It doesn't go into New York City a lot. Have you seen that? Traffic lights,
Like
bicycles.
this here, right? This
Yeah.
one has 3 branches coming out from the same spot. Do you need to take over?
Yeah, when I get the basic shape of the tree, I'll start taking some of those out.